The more AI is integrated into our lives, especially the agentic and autonomous versions of it, the cloudier the answer becomes to the question, who's liable if something goes wrong? Well, Gen Xers, welcome to Control Alt Debrief, a new show I put together to cover the AI news because this stuff changes so fast and it takes me some time to put together a full old guy in AI podcast. So I want to keep you up to date on the information that could impact us. So today we're talking about how autonomous AI is reshaping liability as we know it. Now, I'm not a big fan of insurance and lawyers and all that stuff. And I don't mean the individual insurance agent or the individual attorney, because I know both of those. I mean, in general, I'm not a fan of that arena, unless, of course, I need them. But this article got me thinking, if agentic AI goes rogue or autonomous AI calculates incorrectly and things go horribly wrong, well, who's responsible? I mean, who's going to pay? And if necessary, who's going to jail? Here's the article. I printed it out. Now, this was reported in the Epic Times in November and was written by Autumn Sprederman. I hope I got that right. Anyway, they interviewed legal experts in regards to liability and discussed the challenges when technology, like autonomous AI, is ahead of the law. And they said, whether it's driving a car or summarizing a doctor's appointment, autonomous artificial intelligence systems can make decisions that cause real harm, rapidly changing the landscape of liability. Man, I never thought that I would find this interesting, but here we are. Attorneys and AI developers say US laws must keep up with the technology as debate persists over who's responsible when things go wrong. Lawmakers are looking to close the accountability gap by shifting burdens and expanding who can be held accountable when autonomous AI systems fail. Unlike non autonomous AI systems, autonomous models are more likely to be unpredictable. And in tech, this is always the challenge, right? The big wins, the sexy successes in agentic and autonomous AI will also carry the greatest risks. The question of accountability needs to be clear, not only to help us, to get recompense if something goes wrong, but it's also a deterrent for AI developers from being reckless in the development and deployment of their solutions. They need to know where those lines are drawn before they start working. Now, in the article, an attorney named Pavel Kolmogorov, sorry, he said this: autonomous AI systems fundamentally disrupt the clear human oversight paradigm. Their defining characteristics, complexity, operational autonomy, and the capacity for continuous learning, create profound challenges for applying traditional legal concepts. He also said that AI's black box problem, where even developers can't fully explain the specific reasoning behind an AI's decision, makes it extraordinarily difficult to pinpoint a specific breach or defect in the traditional sense. Ah, the elusive black box problem. It's a real thing. When you build a computer that's so complex and you allow it to self improve and work internally without complete visibility, well, you can't necessarily judge its risk by its output, and you really don't know what's happening internally either. Are there risks or biases or inaccuracies that it's using to solve problems that we give it? The type that don't show up right away or are consistent, or does it have biases that are subtle and hard to pin down? If you don't know how it's doing its job, you also can't be certain that you can fix it when it goes astray. So maybe the only way would be to rebuild it from scratch. And that doesn't sound like a good alternative. Now, it's funny from a legal perspective, that black box may turn into the usual suspects, like in the movie Casablanca. I'm sure most of you have seen it. Whenever there was a crime in this town, they always rounded up the known criminals and they called them the usual suspects. They often use them as scapegoats to hide the real criminals and the corruption going on. So I wonder how long it'll take for lawyers to point to the black box as a culprit. I mean, it's owned by big tech, and big tech can't prove it isn't the problem. It's pretty interesting. So, this article also points out that the consequences of this new technology are already happening. For example, Autonomous vehicle accidents have become a serious reality, with 3,946 incidents between 2019 and 2024, including multiple fatalities like the landmark 2018 Tempe case, where a self driving Uber killed a pedestrian. The central legal challenge is determining who's responsible when AI fails, whether it's due to coding flaws or inadequate training data or unpredictable learned behaviors. While the current law still relies on traditional negligence principles that may not adequately address AI's unique complexities. I mean, you really have to think of AI as like a product with like a digital supply chain instead of it being like a braking system with wiring flaw or a defect in the brake pads. With AI, for the most part, you're looking at digital assets that combine to make the AI system work. The reporter wrote how the tech is outpacing the law, which is not uncommon with new tech. If a driver is expected to monitor the system and it fails to intervene, they can be held responsible for negligence. But if the technology itself is defective or marketed in a misleading way, the manufacturer may face liability. In many cases, fault can be shared. We're essentially applying old legal standards to new technology until the law catches up, because the current laws were written with human drivers in mind. As autonomy increases, legislatures and courts will need to define how responsibility is allocated between human operators, manufacturers, and possibly even software developers. The autonomous AI supply chain can include data suppliers, software developers, hardware manufacturers, system integrators, and end users, each contributing to the final product. Man, there's a lot to figure out there. Just so many moving parts. And because the technology hasn't settled, those parts, those integration points, those participation places where different people are involved, well, that can continue to change. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to have to start figuring this out because, like with that Tempe case, these are real lives are being affected. It's really sad. Now, another area of concern, especially for Gen X users like us, as our body parts start complaining more frequently, is the consequence of AI in medicine. David Talby, CTO of Pacific AI, said AI agents can have quality of life impacts as models advance and become increasingly independent of human involvement. AI in healthcare directly impacts people's lives and well being. These systems can independently process complex medical data, draft clinical notes, and guide patients in self care. But it's important this is always under a human in the loop framework of accountability. While parts of the workflow are fully automated, human oversight is still needed in healthcare and beyond. Errors can have profound consequences, and accountability must extend past accuracy metrics. Issues such as bias in medical data sets, robustness under real world variability, and adherence to ethical standards all demand what is called rigorous governance. In healthcare, we must ensure that AI systems are not only effective, but are also safe, transparent, and compliant with regulations. Kolmogorov said, physicians face dual risks as AI diagnostic tools become more accurate in healthcare. They face negligence for not using validated AI and negligence for over relying on flawed recommendations. The more control a user cedes to an AI agent, the more risks to people arise. He said, I regularly advise clients in emerging tech and mobility sectors on AI autonomy risk. The focus is on mitigating exposure before a failure becomes a legal crisis. So, this is the path of the new tech, and it's already impacting lives. In business, if you're working on agentic or autonomous AI, be sure to have rigorous internal governance and guardrails for the tech and its development. Lawmakers are doing their best to play catch up, but their delays open legal gaps if something goes wrong. So if you have use to autonomous AI like in your car, currently, remember that the driver is ultimately responsible for what happens, even if most of the work is being done by AI. And as agentic AI enters the medical industry, make sure your doctor takes the lead in what care you receive. Where they use AI as a tool, not as their replacement, where they just rubber stamp whatever it recommends. Now, I know this from previous medical experience that no one is going to advocate for your health more than you. So make sure your doctors are providing your medical care in a way that protects you from unintended errors. Yeah, definitely. So, what does this mean for us? Well, I think if you're in the healthcare space or the automotive space or even just the AI development space, understand that the gray areas of liability will soon clear. So assume that whatever you develop will have liability connected to it that could impact your job, your industry, or your company. Now, if you're in the insurance space, this is an entirely new wing of liability coverage waiting to be sold. The more liability gets defined, the more policies you can write. Now, on a hopeful note, once again, human participation in AI is more important than ever. The number of employees may be smaller, but the human impact of their role will be greater. So be ready to take advantage of those opportunities when they arise. So, what can we do? Well, I said it before, I'll say it again. Stay on your AI learning path. Find the right AI tech for you and your area of interest. Invest your time in it, learn it. It continues to evolve. So stay up to date with how it works and keep practicing. Also, look for open doors. I mean, autonomous AI and agentic AI are the future, as we've talked about. So if you have knowledge of an industry where either of those two solutions can be applied, speak up, take the lead. Even if you don't know AI well enough to lead the development, your experience can help guide it, guide the project, making sure that it encompasses all the variables you've seen in that industry from your experience. I mean, either way, whether you know AI or not, there's an opportunity. And for lawyers and lawmakers, well, if you're an attorney who deals with liability, well, you're already seeing the good and bad of this stuff, you know? This is your time to shine and propose legislation that benefits your customers by protecting them from AI accidents. And if you're in the government, expanding or redefining what liability means in your city, county, or state, well, that's a battle worth fighting. Look, people only get one life, right? Let's minimize any potential injury and help provide AI developers with legal guardrails they can use as they create their amazing solutions while also limiting unintended potential harm. Well, the good news is I found this really interesting. And again, this is an area that I don't really think about much. And I had not considered at all in the development of AI, but I mean, it all makes sense. I don't want people who are harmed by this new tech to be without options so they can be made whole. So I'm glad they're looking into that. And there's an opportunity for Gen Xers in this space to participate, lead, and protect AI solutions from unintended errors that can negatively impact lives. And I think that's exciting. So let me ask you, what areas of liability do you think AI creates the most risk? I mean, because I'm new to this area, so let me know in the comments. Also, as always, don't forget to join our community. It's free. The link is in the show notes. And remember, Gen Xers, don't wait for someone else to build our future. Let's build it together. So thank you so much for joining me today. It means a lot. Anytime you spend with me, I really, really appreciate it. So when I stumble across the next really interesting article that applies to us, I'll be back. I'll see you then.